Welcome to Shutter and Flow. Today is probably going to be a little bit of a short one. We're actually going to talk a little bit about camera gear specifically. Jeremy just bought an R5, so we're going to talk
Mark
about that
II.
quite a bit. And we're just going to kind of dive in a little bit into what's on the market from Canon and Nikon and Sony. Jeremy has a lot more experience with this than I do. I stopped shooting professional cameras around the 5D Mark II or something like that. And so, yeah, let's jump in. So you just bought an R5.
Yeah, so I was using the R5, Canon's mirrorless system, which Canon has, most companies at this point have switched completely over to mirrorless. Like they are making all their new lenses for mirrorless. It's just the way to go. For people who don't know the difference, think of a shutter flipping up and down. With mirrorless, you don't have that. You can put on an electronic shutter and shoot silently if you want to, which for television shows, we talked about it with Mark about we used to have a big blimp on our camera, or sporting events, golf specifically, where you need to be quiet. You don't have to worry about that anymore. And now they've gotten even quieter. At the beginning, the electronic shutter, if you were close enough, you could hear something. The new ones, you hear nothing. So I was shooting with the Canon R5 I've been doing it for the last few years. And really, it's a great camera. I had no issues with it. It's just, you still have shutter count issues. You still have things where you use a camera long enough, you see sensor spots over time. You'll get spots, a pixel will die, basically. And you'll see this little pink spot on your thing. So I decided it was time to upgrade. I'm going to buy one this year, one next year for tax purposes, write it off 2 separate years, and that way work on it that way. So I just got it yesterday. I had Canon R5 Mark II. It's almost body-wise everything. I went with the battery grip just to have the extra 2 batteries, so you can have 2 batteries, longer everything. The feel of the camera's the same. Minor upgrades of like the viewfinder's bigger. They moved a few buttons around, stuff like that. Now I've really dug into, it's not like back in the day. What was the first Canon that you bought? Do you remember?
God, I can't remember the first one I bought. I think it might have been the 5D,
Yeah.
which they didn't even call the Mark I, Mark II back then. I think it was just the Canon 5D. Before that, I remember shooting with the 20D, and was that the first professional kind of digital camera that people started switching over from film? I remember when people started switching over from film, they were shooting on the 20D. Like that was the camera that people were kind of shooting on, unless you're shooting digital backs or really, really high end stuff. But most like consumer, like prosumer level things, it was the 20D. And the memory cards, I think we might have talked on here about this
Yeah.
before, but it was like 256K
Megabytes.
and megabytes the file sizes were tiny. You know, you're talking like a few megabyte files. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was tiny. And the 5D was kind of the camera for like a while. I think it's in general, if you weren't going to drop an arm and a leg on a like a crazy expensive camera, most people were shooting 5Ds for like a long time.
Yeah. And the whole reason for that was the first one, if I believe I'm correct with this, that was a full frame sensor.
Yeah.
Before that, they couldn't make the sensor big enough to be the size of a 35 millimeter. So then your lenses didn't line. Basically, it cropped your lens down.
Yeah,
So
it was
instead
an
of shooting
aspect ratio issue and all that stuff with the sensor, and so they fixed that way back when. I don't know, it was probably like 15 years ago now or something.
Which, if you want to save money, you can still buy a cropped sensor camera. The next level down behind all of these cameras have a crop sensor. And look, it serves the purpose. It's not, back in the day, Nikon was up top first with a better digital camera. And then every time a new one would come out, Canon would leapfrog, Nikon would leapfrog. It was a constant back and forth. Really, at that time, it was more about the sensor and the megapixels. God, I remember like the megapixel race.
Yeah.
That's not as important as it was anymore. Like, yes, there's still higher megapixels for digital backs that are 100 and 200. This one is like 45 or 50. It's way more than you really need. I think you get into a point where it's too much. It gets too sharp. You have to like take out some of the sharpness of it, the digital sharpness. But I say that as I wasn't buying a new camera because I needed a new sense. Like, it didn't need the newer, higher quality of the camera sensor. I needed a new camera just because I had wore mine out, and over time, I'm not throwing it away. I'm still going to use it for some other things. But it's just time to do it. So doing that, I really dug into what's the real difference between the two cameras, because you can see this debate online of like, do you need to upgrade? So like right now, if you wanted to buy the R5, the first generation, it's $3,000. This one is $38.99 on sale right now. The Canon always has their yearly like sale. If you buy this, if you buy a lens with it, you get more off, all of that. The big difference between the two cameras is slightly different sensor. It's about the same megapixels. It's just a new version of a sensor with more layers and things that I am not smart enough to understand. Video feature goes up a lot on this one. Higher quality, better slow-mo. Things that I'm not going to use a lot, but I might, and it's good to have that option. The real difference is what I'm seeing, and I've read a few reviews from different people, is the autofocus is exceptional on this camera. It can do things like track your eye movement with this bigger screen on the back here. It's much larger. You can see a lot better, and it can track where you're looking and focus to that. And it's just in general sharper of hitting autofocus all the time, which is huge. And then it shoots more frames per second, which most people won't need that. You're
Yeah.
going from 20 frames per second to 30 frames per second. Average person is not going to need that. It's for sports people. When I shoot some golf stuff, it'll be good to have to get that ball coming off of the face. Things like that. And also on that point, they fixed an issue of the rolling shutter. And I've shown you this before where because it's an electronic shutter, it's going down to expose. Instead of like a pop open, pop close, like an old school mechanical, think
Yeah.
of a rolling curtain going down. So if you're shooting someone swinging a baseball bat, a golf club, just super fast moving action, it can actually overbend those things.
Yeah.
And it's all about the writing speed and very technical. This fixes most of that. So you
Nice.
won't have that issue. But again, is it necessary for most people? Probably not.
Yeah, if you're not shooting sports, speed really isn't an issue, right? Things moving quickly. I don't mean the speed of the camera, but like things moving quickly, it's just not an issue. But like so beyond just the general quality, but I guess let's backtrack a little bit, right? Because you've been a Canon shooter since always. Part of that I think becomes like familiarity with a system, right? Like when you're familiar with the lenses and you own a bunch of lenses and then you just buy a new camera body and you stick those lenses on that body, you're familiar with the buttons and the setups and the menus and all those kind of things. And so a new camera comes out, takes you maybe a week to figure out, oh, this is where they might have moved something. But it's the same thing as buying a new Mac, right? You buy a new Mac Pro or MacBook Air, which I just bought one of the new MacBook Airs. It takes you like a day and you're right back to where you were versus switching systems entirely. If you were to pick up a Sony or a Nikon or something totally different and you've never shot with it before, it changes things. Back in the day, everyone was either diehard Canon or diehard Nikon. And I think that was because of that race of everyone simply every year, one of the two would release like the best new camera, right? And like, oh, this one has more megapixels or this one can do this little thing a little bit better. But in general, they were pretty comparable, I think. I was always a Canon shooter, but I didn't hold a grudge against people who shot Nikon like
Well,
some
no,
other
because
people did.
I do, because they put their
Yeah.
sensor, their lenses click on backwards. It doesn't make
Yeah,
any
it's
sense to
exactly
me.
right. It's something where like people would just get hung up on like little things. And then Sony came in and really did an amazing job because nobody shot Sony professional at all for years, right? Like they had a couple of like consumer level cameras and they just didn't do anything. And then was it maybe about 10 years ago they started releasing sort of higher end cameras, and now like a lot of people will shoot Sonys. Um have you seen less people shooting Nikon since Sony became kind of bigger?
For sure. What Sony did well is, let's just take this back. So Canon, the 5D came out and they added video function to it. I had talked to someone, a Canon rep at one point. It had very limitations. They added it on there as a bonus feature, not expecting that people would use it for actual productions. And if you remember at that time,
Yeah.
and we were at Turner at the time, it blew up. People were coming to us, Cartoon Network were coming to us saying, hey, can you shoot these videos for us? Because you have the Canon 5D, you have all the equipment, all the lenses. And we're like, sure, we'll figure it out. It was very limiting on what you could do because the audio was terrible, which you had to
Yeah.
record separate. You never were just like holding a camera like this shooting. You see it now. You had to build out all the stuff on it, extra monitors, all these things. What Sony did really well was take that idea, take some existing video cameras, that technology that they were really good at. On the super high end, they were doing some great video cameras already. They've made it go into a smaller camera with good photo and good video combined and put it out there. And look, I shot with Sony for a while. I also shot with Fuji for a while, which I love a Fuji.
Yeah.
Because at the time, Canon didn't have a mirrorless camera they were late to the game on mirrorless. Fuji and Sony came in really heavy with just that. And I can see a point in all of it, and Nikon kind of fell off in the background behind that. They're making a change now. They partnered with Red, who makes very high end, or they were acquired or combined, however it works, very high-end video cameras, and they just announced their first combined cinema camera, which I haven't looked into all the specs of, but I think that's a good way for them to stay relevant, because I don't think Nikons are used as much as they were, and they lost out a lot, especially to Sony. I think a lot of new photographers coming into the game go with Sony. I've seen that a whole lot. And look, there's one feature on the new Sony that I want. I wish Canon would have done it, which is a global shutter, where we talked about the curtain thing. And
The roll shutter.
yeah, this new Sony, it exposes the whole thing at one time. So you hit the button, the entire sensor gets exposed at the exact moment. You can shoot so insanely fast with it because it's just like, it's like an off on switch. I've seen some people make GIFs shooting full with it as fast as it'll go, and it looks like a movie. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this. I want to test with one in a studio scenario with pro photo strobes that can go as fast as possible, and that as fast as possible. I think there's something unique that could happen that no one's really done. I still haven't seen it.
Yeah, you
So
might
yeah,
get some interesting kind of stop motion-y kind of look, but like out of camera as opposed to having to do it on the back end.
And also perfectly lit, which is
Yeah.
like I've been working with some sports stuff lately, so I'm thinking about that. You can't, because you could also, with the global shutter, there's no sync speed, so the strobe goes off. You can have your shutter speed at whatever you want, so you don't have to worry about that. So you could really perfectly light anything, a swing, a jump, all of those things. It's kind of hard to do in a proper studio setting on a normal camera. It always has been an issue.
But that's kind of a unique situation, right? Like, let's say that you could, if you have a crazy project like that in mind, something specific, you could also just go out and rent a camera for the day or whatever and do that versus somebody who's actually gonna buy gear, right? Like right now, assuming somebody's been shooting for a while, likely they're going to just buy the same upgrade of whatever current camera body they're currently using. They're not going to switch to like a whole new system, especially if they have a lot of glass, right? So if somebody owns a lot of lenses, um they're not going to switch because they spent so much money on the lenses that it just doesn't make sense. But they might pick up like a small something to play with or travel camera that's something totally different, as long as it, isn't as much as like a pro camera body.
Yeah, I completely agree that like having, I mean, that's why I will stick with Canon. I could see advantages and disadvantages to every camera system. There's always a little something you can add from one to the other. I don't think it's as big as it used to be of, oh, this one has this much technology and this one can do this. They're little details. You're going to get a great image no matter what. So yeah, if you have the glass and you have it and you're used to it, there's no reason to switch right now anymore, unless you're going really high end for some reason, which you rent those most of the time anyways. But yes, I bought a Fuji X100 as like a carry around travel camera. And it's like, yeah, $1,500. It's a great quality, fun to play with. I can let my kids use it when we're on trips. Like Oliver loved it. I do have to get it fixed because it got wet, but we won't talk about that. So yeah, I think stick with what you got. But so far, after 2 days, I've been out shooting with this camera. Seems great to me. I haven't dug into the files. I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to blow my mind. It's like, oh my God, this is so much better than the old stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, the one other thing we didn't talk about is color space, which for you and I, we go in and change everything on the back end, shoot raw, all of that. But each company has a specific color look that their cameras naturally do.
Yeah, it's part of the algorithm and processing and the raw file processing. So it's like you're gonna get really deep end into it. Yeah, it just depends on what you shoot. But nowadays you can kind of reverse engineer it to look however you want in post.
Yeah. Because yeah, Canon traditionally has magenta and looks better on people. Nikon has a little more green. I always find a lot of Sony stuff to be a little more clinical, not in a bad way. It's just like straightforward to the point. I
Yeah.
think the cameras also are that way. The menus are built by a computer engineer, not a photographer.
Well, I mean, even though any camera you buy right now is likely going to have a huge engineering team that's working on it but it's the consulting of actually like photographers that probably on the teams that kind of help build it out to make it usable. But if you wonder why there's some weird, crazy setting on there feature that nobody ever uses, it's probably because somebody on the engineering team was like, "Hey, we can do this,"
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, if you want the camera system that is the most photographer centric, the Fuji's, it's designed like that. The aperture is on the lens, it's a rotating thing. It's more of an old school design, less
It's
buttons,
the
less.
only camera I currently own besides an RZ, which we can not talk about where that came from. But besides an RZ, I have a Fuji X Pro 2, which is older because it's been out for like forever. But that's my little like travel camera. Like it's the only thing I shoot with. And for a while, I was shooting some things with it, but nothing professionally. It's like it's a hobby camera. So, but even that, I could see like the quality of the files that come out of that, even though it's older. I can understand why if somebody's not like, I don't want to say professional. If you're a commercial photographer, you should be shooting with a pro camera, but not like an X Pro 2. But you could, in a pinch, use it for something for sure.
I mean, I think that we're to the point with quality of these cameras. You put nice glass on something and buy the higher end lens. Almost any camera is going to give you a really high quality something,
Yeah.
even to the X Pro 2 level. It's shocking what some of these can do now compared to what we had back in college and coming out of college.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's been a long time, right? Not to say that we're old, but it has been a really long time and it's come super far. So what's coming down the pipeline for Canon? I think me and you were talking before. You said that they are actually going to release a new model of the R5 at some point this year.
yeah, I don't think it'll be this year. I think it's going to be a ways, at least a year and a half out. They try to space them out pretty often. It's like they have three of their top cameras, if you want to call it that. There's the R1, the R3, and the R5. The R1 and the R3 are the bigger bodies. They're the ones, those are the ones they actually call their professional bodies. Um, it's the built-in battery grip, bigger battery, dual of the CFast cards, the bigger card slots if you want to double and all of that. Um, but it's interesting. Those are a lot of those are designed a little more towards the sports photographer. It's lower megapixels, shoots crazy fast, like insanely fast. That's where this one, I had talked to the Canon rep when we went to some event and I was debating, do I need to do the R3, spend a little more money, or is the R5 going to work? I do more portraits, more other things, and then do some sports golf stuff on the side because I enjoy it or have some friends I've made through that. He's like, you don't need the R3 for what you're doing. The higher megapixel, higher quality sensor is more important than the speed stuff that you're going to get it with. And honestly, this thing's going to do 30 frames per second. That's way more than that's way more than I'll ever need. Because then it gets really dangerous because you have to keep up with the file size. The file sizes are huge.
Yeah, just editing, right? Like go crazy with shooting 30 frames a second on something. You're going to shoot for an hour. You're going to be spending 2 days editing your photos.
Oh, I forgot to tell the other feature they added that I haven't played with. I'm going to figure this out. It has something called pre-shooting. So if you set this up and you're shooting, I watched a video of this guy who's a baseball photographer, and he described it really well. So you set it up, and for instance, you're focused on the batter. And I used to do this for the Braves. You focus in on the batter, the pitch comes in, you only want the one that he swings at, not the one that he takes as a ball or doesn't swing at. If you focus on the person and half hold down the button, like a focusing button used to be, but now you move that to the back if you're smart, um, it will shoot 15 frames in that buffer period that you're half holding down the button. And then when you fully press it, it will save those. If you don't fully press it, it won't save those.
Interesting. So it's kind of like dealer's choice. Like you're trying to focus on something. If you decide you don't want those frames, you just release the button. I mean, that's great, except for if you accidentally have that set up and then you're like, where's the shot I wanted? I think some people might be a little wary of using that.
Yeah, and that's what something this guy talked about. He's like, look, it adds a lot of extra frames. If you're adding 15 frames into your shot every
100%.
time you do one shot and you're holding it down and getting 30 to 60 frames after that, that's a lot of photos and a lot of data. And I think it's going to be important now of like, just go in. I have to be really specific about my selects and just, I think I'm just to the point where I delete all the extras and truly throw them away. Like there's time where I'd
Yeah.
save a lot of stuff and you can only back up so much stuff and so many hard drives and NAS server, like all of that. The storage starts adding up real quick.
Yep. 100%. Well, I think that's enough today for cameras. If anyone wants to drop anything in comments, questions, anything like that in the chat, anything interesting that they want to hear us talk about if it's gear related, because we could probably go in a lot deeper on a bunch of stuff. But everyone, thanks for listening and watching, and we will record again next week.
See you soon.